Stefan is a vampire who's addicted to blood. He's probably the worst vampire ever. Yet he has like a class for newbie vampires.
So this is what you do the first time we're back together as a family, Vampire Book Club.
Warning, this podcast, Vampire Book Club, will contain spoilers from The Vampire Diaries, the originals, and legacies. Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast of Vampire Book Club, a TVDU podcast. Please expect spoilers from any of the 3 shows in the universe, The Vampire Diaries, the originals, or legacies. Never know where I'm going to go with it. So in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about Stefan's blood addiction. I don't even know where to unpack. There are so many things. They are very inconsistent. And while I don't actually think that's a plot hole because addiction is not consistent in any addict I've ever met, they go through periods of time. Like I have my uncle is an addict, and he would be sober for some parts of his life and then not for others. And sometimes it would be like a couple years, and sometimes it would be a couple days. And sometimes he's able to stop quicker than other times. So I don't think that's a plot hole at all. But I think I think also blood addiction could be different than other addictions, although probably not. But who am I? Oh yeah, I'm Michaela, actually. I didn't introduce myself in the beginning. I just said, welcome to my podcast. So one of the biggest things for me is how Stefan is a vampire who's addicted to blood. He's probably the worst vampire ever. Yet he has like a class for newbie vampires. Every single one of them. Your emotions are heightened. He has like his 101 vampire course, teaching all of them to feed off of bunny blood. And then you got Damon, who's just infiltrating it like you need people blood. And it seems to work out well. They should go into business together, teaching them people how to compel, how to feed. They should have worked at a large school. We see him struggle with addiction throughout pretty much every season, whether it actually be Stefan or somebody in Stefan's body or his memories erased or whatever else. But we see him go on some kind of like Rippah binge because he is a Rippah. Rippahs don't stop. It's just weird in the moments that he can show us self-control in the moments that he can't. And I also find it weird about the whole I coach you to be a good vampire, but I don't even know how to be that myself. I mean, I guess a lot of addicts also do this, but they're usually in recovery for a while. And they're not like, oh, I'll drink synthetic alcohol, you drink regular alcohol in AA, you know? And I get for a vampire, it's also different because it's like their way to live. It's not like humans are addicted to water. Maybe they are. It's interesting that it's like seems to be, well, we don't really know, but it could be genetic because Lily Salvatore also has this issue. I like how he also takes out a village. I get a little lost here too because in 1917 he's takes out a whole village on Christmas, and that's where the devil finds him, and that's where I get a little confused. But the first time we really see Stefan and his addiction is in season 1. He mentions it a couple times, I guess, like that he struggles. But even when Lexi first shows up in the episode where Damon kills her, I feel like they wrote in Lexi saving Stefan afterwards because Lexi's like, I wish I could do the bunny diet. Don't like judge me. And it doesn't make it seem like, oh, you can't do this because of this and that. Like I feel like they overlooked that or it wasn't there yet. But like I said, the first time we really see him struggling is in season 1, episode 17, where we see how he is as an addict, at least to human blood. He is taken by the tomb vampires, and Damon tries to break in with Elena and Alaric. Well, Elena's supposed to stay in the car, and this is why I hate her too, because she just puts herself in unnecessary danger and makes things harder for other people sometimes, although she was helpful to save Stefan. But, I mean, Alaric probably could have just picked him up and threw him in the car. Maybe, as he's had more training at that point, while Damon distracted. So Elena is trying to get Stefan to the car, and Frederick, the vampire in the tomb, is coming after him. And he is weak. He is weak because he's just tortured, and his diet is not for people. His diet is bunny blood, and he's not as strong as most vampires. So he can't really protect Elena, and he can't defend himself or be as strong as he needs to be in a lot of these situations. So Elena just panics and gives him human blood and says, I trust you. And he's like, no, Elena, run. Like, this is not a good idea. And Elena just does it anyways. She's like, okay, I trust you. So he drinks it. And all of a sudden, you see this rage in Stefan that you've never seen before. He is like animalistic, primal for sure. And he's growling. He's growling at Elena. He kills Frederick, and he still goes after Frederick has already been staked in the heart. And Elena tries to stop him. Stefan, it's okay. Like, and he just growls at her, and he's like, oh my God, it was crazy. I was like, oh no, he's gonna kill her. He didn't, obviously. Later, they like talk about it, her and Elena, and he apologizes, and he's like, I'm sorry you had to see me like this. She's like, yeah, you were like this other person. I'm sorry that I forced you to do that. And he's like, well, you were just saving my life, and I was just saving yours. And like, he's like, it's gonna be okay. Like, I'll be okay. And then you see him at the end, like Damon sees him with a trail of blood bags. Like, he's not okay. And he pretends to have it under control, but so the next episode, episode 18, it's called Under Control. And there's like a party, I think, at the Lockwood Mansion or whatever. And it's the episode where Tyler makes out with Matt Donovan's mom. And Damon actually asks him to like drink human blood. He leaves the glass there, is what happens. And before they get to the party, Damon leaves the glass like in front of him of human blood, trying to like tease him because he's trying to like work out and stay away from the blood. But he definitely can't control it. So now there's like blood bags being... Now John Gilbert's here, and he's saying how blood bags are all missing from different hospitals within a 75-mile radius of Mystic Falls. So it could be the tomb vampires, it could be whatever. So now they're at the party, and Stefan's drunk, and Elena's like, I don't have to force you to like dance. There's not even music on. No one is even dancing. He compels somebody, even though there's strict orders for Carol Lockwood to be the only one with music control. So he's able to compel, and then he starts like getting angry with some guy who bumped into Elena or whatever. And he makes her apologize, and he's very gross and misogynistic and just like, I'm a alpha male type of, not Stefan. So Stefan is being unlike himself, and then you have to like, and then you see him with Elena, not with Elena, but Damon comes up to him to tell him that John Gilbert can't die. He killed John Gilbert, and he's wearing the same ring as Alaric, and that he cannot die. And so he goes to follow him, and all of a sudden so Matt Donovan's mom gets hurt in the fight between Tyler and Matt when Matt sees them kissing, and she's bleeding. And he goes to like follow Damon as he's talking about the ring, and Stefan is like, he just stops. He smells it. He can hear the heartbeat. He's like... And he goes up to Matt's mom, and he's like, are you okay? And like starts playing with the blood on her head. It's so weird. I'm embarrassed for him. And she's like, what are you doing? And he kind of snaps out of it, and he runs out into the parking lot because now he has the blood on his fingers, and he's like trying to fight it. And then that guy bumps into him on purpose that was in the party before. And he's like, oh, what? No girl to impress, no girl to impress. And he breaks his arm. And he's trying so hard to have self-control, but he just shouldn't have been in this scenario. He shouldn't have went to this event. And he ends up like in Elena's room that night, saying that he's not doing okay with it, and that he promised to always be honest. And then Stefan gets home, where Damon is like trying to tell him about the blood and all this other stuff. And Damon's like, you're not okay. And he leaves him the glass this time and walks away and says, have a good night, brother. Like, you definitely need this. So the next episode 19, Miss Mystic Falls, he comes to school like in his car, and he's all like, oh, I'm fine, we're all fine, blah 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 blah, everybody's fine. And Damon's like, you're too happy to be on animal blood. You are on human blood. So he sees Elena and he's like, oh, I just missed you. I'm okay now. So he gets back in. He's like, hey, I'll meet you inside in a minute. I have to go grab my stuff out of my trunk. He opens his trunk to get his backpack or whatever. And you see more empty blood bags. And there's still blood bags missing. Damon confronts him about that. He lies. He definitely took the blood bags because Damon follows him into the basement. And there he is with a full, because in the last episode you see that the fridge is emptied. And in this episode it is not empty, it is full. He's like, I didn't realize you were a closet junkie, Stefan. Even though he's sitting there feeding him human blood. What did you expect? Stefan comes to the practice for the Miss Mystic Falls near touch dance. And he's just like fun, and because he's not trying to fight his natural instinct. He doesn't have constant agitation, but he's a monster with no control. So after he's leaving this practice with Elena, Bonnie is trying to stay away from Elena because she doesn't want to make Elena choose because of her Gramps dying. She doesn't want to make her choose to be around Stefan or Bonnie. So she's trying to figure this out. And she's just keeping some space. She's upset. She lost her grandmother, saving all of them, honestly. Poor Bonnie. That's another subject. So as he's like done with the practice after he runs into Bonnie, and he hears Bonnie saying that to Elena because she wants to talk to her for a minute. And he must feel guilty about it on some level, obviously. However, then he goes to leave the school. There's a student there whose knee is bleeding, and he sees this as he's walking out, and he is like trying so hard to fight it. You can see his face getting the little lines and getting red and his teeth about to pop out. And then Alaric bumps into him. He's like, are you all right, man? And I think Alaric's like, no, that was weird. And he could see the kid bleeding, and I think he just figured that. I don't know if he knew the depth of his addiction. So Damon goes to Elena during the Mystic Falls thing and says, hey, we got a closet junkie on our hands. Stefan does not have this under control. He has a stolen blood contraband in our freezer. Stefan walks up and hears Damon telling Elena about this. He's like, what's going on in here, guys? And she's like, she's upset. Like, I thought you were going to be honest with me. You just told me this. Like, you just said you were going to be honest with me and we could work through this together. And she's like, he's like, I'm fine. I'm fine. And he's like, why do you think I didn't tell you? Because this is your reaction. Which is such a gaslight, narcissistic, nasty thing to do. And say, not telling somebody something because of their reaction is disgusting. And not Stefan. He is fighting addiction, obviously. And she's like, yeah, that's not cool, dude. And so Carol Lockwood ends up coming up and saying, Stefan, you gotta go. And he's so angry, he punches the mirror in the bathroom and he's bleeding. And then Amber, who's having like panic attacks, hears that and says, are you okay? And he takes her out into the parking lot. She's a contestant in Miss Mystic Falls, and nobody can find her. They don't even really try to look for her either, because I bet you if they just went to the parking lot, they probably would have been like, oh, Amber, hey. Probably would have died from Stefan, but nobody tried to look for her. And it was just very, I don't know. He's like panicking out loud in his head, and he's like, do I kill you? Like, I shouldn't have done this. Now she knows. Oh my God, she's not supposed to know. He's out of his mind, out of his freaking mind. And he's just, I don't know. It's funny because Elena is like, oh yeah. I mean, not Elena. Amber's like, you seem sad. I'm not sad. I'm freaking hungry. And I love that line. It's iconic. And he ends up feeding on her. And he's like, why are you not afraid of me? You're supposed to be afraid of me. And he ends up telling her to run. And he's like the predator version. He's fighting this battle inside of himself like most addicts do. I've never had to fight addiction, but I have seen many people fight addiction. And I can imagine it's a struggle inside of yourself. It's got to be one of the most toughest things. So he ends up chasing her and feeding on her again. And Damon, Bonnie. Okay, before that, John Gilbert and Liz Forbes see the blood in the mirror in the bathroom. And now it's nighttime. He doesn't show up for Elena. Damon obviously dances with her. I'm sure most of you know that, which was like super sweet. He loves her so much earlier than that. And I didn't notice that the first like 10 times I watched, but at some point I figured it out. So Liz says in the bathroom with John Gilbert, Liz is like, get me Damon Salvatore. So she talks to Damon about it, and Damon's like, okay, I'll figure it out. And Damon, Liz, and who's it called? Not Damon, Liz. Damon, Bonnie, and Elena end up seeing Stefan do this, and they try to talk him down. Damon's like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And he just takes off, and Damon ends up being able to compel him. Not compel him, but to compel Amber into not remembering what happened to her. They end up doing a cover story to Liz about how Elena and Bonnie saw her like that bleeding. They didn't get too close. They immediately called Damon, and then Damon called them. Then you see Elena go to Stefan's house and is like, he's like, you shouldn't be here. And he like loses his control completely. He ends up slamming her into a wall, and he's crying. She's like, it's okay, it's okay. Because he gets so angry with her, he's so afraid to hurt her, he just wants her to go. And she's like, no, I'm not going. I'm here for you. And he's just afraid of what will happen to her. So he starts getting worse and worse and worse. And he pushes her into a wall, and he immediately feels awful about it. And then he's like laying with her, and she's like consoling him. He has his head on her, and he's like, I'm so sorry. And then she bare veins him. And Stefan's like, Damon walks in. You sure you want to do this? And then they throw him in the cell, and they dry him out and get all the human blood out of his system. So in the next episode, it's called Blood Brothers. He is hallucinating. Stefan is hallucinating while he's sitting in the cell about Catherine and Damon and the night that Catherine was almost killed. And basically, and then you find out he's actually really guilty for everything that Damon's ever done, because he blames himself for it, because he's the one who forced Damon to turn because Damon wasn't going to. So every time he can't stop Damon from doing something, he takes that on for himself, because he made a mistake by forcing him to become a vampire. Which, that's heavy, but that's his fault. He didn't even mean to turn himself, but shit happens. So Stefan is sitting there. He's like ready to just kill himself or desiccate himself or whatever, because he doesn't want to feel responsible or guilty anymore. And he feels super guilty about everything that he's done in the past few weeks, on top of everything that Damon's done, on top of turning Damon in the first place. And in one of these flashbacks, Elena ends up being able to get through to him. But right before that, Emily Bennett is telling him his heart is his curse in vampirism. And I think that's more of the reason that he's an addict, is because he cares more than most vampires do, just like he did while he was human. And that must have been amplified. Not that Damon didn't care as a human, but he was a little more selfish back then. He was a deserter in the army, in the war, and that was not heard of then. Well, it was, but you know what I mean. And at the end of this episode, Damon basically tells him, you're not responsible for my choices. I make my own choices, and you don't need to feel guilty for that. And I really like that he says that. Shows how much Damon really does love Stefan. Because that whole episode that they have him locked down there, Damon keeps pretending not to care about Stefan, and Elena's like, why do you do that? Why do you pretend not to care? Because Stefan and Damon, no matter what, they both love each other. I feel that. So now in season 2, we have Caroline becoming a vampire. Catherine turns her, the first episode of season 2, you see her wake up. Or the second episode of season 2, I don't remember. This is what I don't understand. He just had all this trouble for weeks being around human blood and not drinking human blood, even though he wanted to, and the struggle with human blood. However, Caroline goes to the carnival that night where she wants to attack her boyfriend, Matt, and she's able to get away from him, and she's feeling very overwhelmed, and then all of a sudden she sees somebody bleeding. First of all, Caroline kills it. She figures out how to be a vampire all on her own. She figures out compulsion, and vampirism. I mean, and like the feeding, all of it. All on her own. And then all of a sudden, so she's upset at the carnival with Matt, whatever. She walks away. She sees some guy with his nose bleeding. She can't control it and ends up killing him. And she's having a meltdown. Damon finds her right before Elaine, because Damon's like, she could never survive as a vampire. Best vampire there is. Especially like in the Vampire Diaries universe, if we don't count any of the originals. And Catherine, I guess. Okay, she's a great vampire though. She's a great vampire. And Damon is just like, we gotta kill her. She ain't gonna last. Remember what happened with Vicky? And Stefan's like, no, we're not killing her. And he stops her right before he stakes her. And then he goes to stake her again, and Elena gets in the middle and he goes, Damon, she's my friend. And Bonnie had already said if Damon spills any more blood, he was going to kill her. So Bonnie thought this was Damon, or didn't care and just wanted to kill Damon because she's pissed off. This wasn't Damon. This was Catherine. So Caroline's having a meltdown, and Stefan goes in the bathroom with her. And this is when they should have got together. These moments are cute. But whatever. So Stefan is like, she's freaking out. I'm a monster. Look at me. And he's like, let's just clean you up. But this is where I also don't understand, because first of all, that's human blood on her face. And he just struggled for weeks, like 4 weeks, maybe months, with this human blood contact thing. And now he's wiping it off of Caroline's face. And he's like, you can do this. You are strong. Your emotions are heightened right now. You're a new vampire. You know, the same spiel he gives in his Vampire 101 club. Vampire Newbies 101. Your emotions are heightened. You must feed on bunnies. Or Bambi. We got Thumper and Bambi coming up for you. And then the Damon infiltration. I love. You need people blood. I'm telling you, they need to do a thing. So at that point, like, Stefan clearly was fine around the blood. So, like, is he an addict or not? Or is it only when... I feel like that wasn't a lot of time. I don't know. I also feel like... So now Stefan is helping her during his Vampire Newbie 101 class. And they're at a party, or not at a party. I don't know. He's teaching her how to feed. He's teaching her how to... He tells her to breathe through it. And she's able to do it, sort of. And then she goes to a party where she probably shouldn't have gone yet. But Elena calls to tell Stefan what they found out about werewolves. And then all of a sudden, boom, Caroline's gone. They're in the woods making out. And all of a sudden she bites his lip because she's like not in control of herself. Obviously, she's a new vampire. Her emotions and feelings are heightened. I learned this from my boy, Stefan. And he's like trying to find her. And then Mason's out there trying to turn. Tyler and that girl he was trying to make out with, I forget her name right now, but she ends up dying. End up going to where he's tying himself up to turn. So he has to turn in his car. And he ends up like showing himself. And Tyler is like, no. And he listens to Tyler. And I think it's really because it's because Tyler's a werewolf. Like, I think that's the same reason that Klaus doesn't get attacked when Henrique does. Stefan also gets a ring for Bonnie, where she's nasty to Bonnie about it, but she gets a ring so she can be out in daylight. Also, like, there's a couple times Tyler gets compelled, I feel like, in the first season, and it doesn't make sense because he ends up being a werewolf, but maybe werewolves can get compelled if they're not turned. I don't know if that's true for the woman, I forget her name, that's always talking to Elijah in the originals. I don't know if she's compellable, but the one that gives Haley the book that tells her like her date of birth and stuff, and that she's Andrea, and that they know who she is. Whatever. The Tyler thing really didn't have anything to do with Stefan's addiction. So Stefan like stops her from feeding on her, and they're able to compel him to forget, I believe, or they run off. So now there's like another episode where Stefan, because like Damon can't leave Mason alone, so Stefan and Damon are tortured, and this brings up the blood thing again because they get caught by Liz and Mason, and Caroline goes to save them. This is where Liz first finds out about Caroline being a vampire. This brings up the whole he can't protect Elena thing again, and the whole he can't heal. So when they're finally free, when Caroline like saves them, Damon is able to heal faster because Damon drank the deputies, and everybody thinks Caroline. This is where you see Damon do something nice. You see that Damon cares. This isn't the only time. I think there's probably even times before this, but it's a very good, caring, loving moment. Because you think Damon's just going to kill Sheriff Forbes like he did the other ones. And she goes, kill me or compel me, because I don't want to know this about my daughter. And he's like, nobody's killing anyone. You're my friend, Liz. So cute. But anyways, Stefan's like unsure about what to do because he wants to be stronger. He wants to be able to face Catherine, and he doesn't know what's coming next for her from her because she's a wildcat, obviously. And he just wants to be able to protect Elena and be strong and win the fight. Makes sense. So Elena comes up to him at the end of this episode and is like, you know what? Like, I trust you. I'll let you feed off off me a little bit at a time. And they start doing that so he can build control slowly. And it shows like that's a really sweet moment between them. I'm not a Stelena shipper, but they had a really great moment. I am a Delena shipper. I like the toxic ships, I guess. That's what happens when you grow up in a toxic household. It is what it is, but I'm better now. So again, Stefan cares so deeply. And eventually they stop doing that, I think, because Stefan is like, Elena can't, I don't really remember. Elena breaks up with him because Catherine's forcing herself in between it and gonna hurt all the people she loves. So they break up, and I don't think he's doing that anymore. But you do see like in one episode where Stefan's like, yeah, Elena knows I was drinking her blood. It was her idea. I think they're going to save Elena or something. I don't know. But then, Klaus is showing up the night that Elena's getting sacrificed to break the curse that is put on Klaus from Esther. Klaus is like, hey, Stefan's like, take me. He doesn't want to take him. And then there's like a fight between Tyler and Damon. Tyler bites Damon. And he's dying of a werewolf bite, and there's no known cure. And then Stefan's like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get a cure. You're my brother. I love you. And he gets him a cure. Stefan saves Damon a lot, too. They both love each other, even though I think Damon is the better brother. But anyways, Stefan's like, or I just think they're different people, and they show things differently. But again, sorry. So Damon gets bit, and Stefan does anything for a cure. He goes to the witches. The witches, Klaus is the answer. So he goes to Klaus, and Klaus literally bites Catherine because he's a hybrid. He's half werewolf, half vampire. And he bites Catherine, and she's like, oh shit, this is my end. And then all of a sudden, he has her drink his blood, and the werewolf bite is cured. So he's the cure. And to break his curse, he had to become, that's what made him the cure. It's also what made him able to reproduce. Which, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense if you already had the werewolf. But, I think it would have made more sense if the werewolf side of him was already activated first. But, him reproducing, of course. But whatever. Why can't Tyler reproduce? I guess they don't say that he can't, I guess. Oh, because Tyler wasn't made by a spell. Okay. But still, it has me wondering. However, so Klaus is like, and you don't know this at that time, and I love season 3 and 4. They're my favorite seasons. You don't know. Stefan tries to offer himself in as the vampire instead of Jenna. He goes, no, I have other plans for you. And you're like, how the hell do you have other plans? What are your plans? To kill him and watch him? You don't know their history at this point. And Stefan goes begging Klaus for a cure for Damon. And he's like, I heard about this one vampire who's off and on the wagon. Took out a whole village in 1917 or whatever. 1919. I think it's 1917. In Monterey, the Rippah. He's like, well, that's the brother I can make a deal with. And he keeps making him drink a bunch of human blood bags. And he goes, okay. And he knows. Klaus knows that Catherine is on Vervain. He's been around for a long time, and he never gets fooled. So he gives Catherine the cure to bring to Damon, and says, come right back. And Stefan's like, fuck. She'll never bring it to him, which she does. Hey, that's how she survives. She gets people back when she needs to. And I think she cares about Dean as well as Stefan. More so. And seeing Stefan do that for him, she was like, yeah, I'm going to make sure I do this for my boy. So in season 3, kind of reminds me of Toy Story 4, the doll who wants Woody's voice back and has the henchmen, he's like one of those henchmen for Klaus. And Klaus is trying to get more successful hybrids, but he can't. He's just leaving. And Damon and Elena are trying to track Stefan, and Stefan is just feeding on humans left and right. And this is why they call him the Rippah. This is when you find out that Stefan feeds and he can't stop. He feeds to the point where he rips their heads off, and then he feels guilty and he puts their heads back on. And he is able to stop, though, at some point during season 3, because he's at least able to fight it. Not only just fight his bloodlust, but he is able to fight compulsion for Elena. It's like, and Klaus even says, like, the only thing stronger than your addiction for blood is your love for this one girl. It's true that that's even possible, because that's not just fighting bloodlust, it's fighting compulsion and bloodlust. Like, that's crazy strength. So that's why I think his Achilles heel, or like that's why I think his addiction comes from his heart and his caring. So like, because when you get into like, so because you see him in the 1920s as well with Rebecca, and he has no conscience, and Rebecca's like, he is totally different right now because he's not struggling with what's right and wrong, because he's full on in Rippah mode. However, he's still writing names on a wall even when he's in full Rippah mode back then. He eventually, so Michael says that he'll kill Damon if Stefan doesn't, and he's like, okay, fine. So even then, with his humanity off, he still wants to save Damon. So he cares. So I don't really think his humanity was all the way off, which it really doesn't make sense, even though he's referring to Elena as a human blood bag, but his love for Damon must run really, really deep. He also loves Elena. He ends up going crazy, though, and when his emotions do come back on, so the night that they are going to kill Michael, they're going to kill Klaus. Klaus is like, bring him to me, so that changes their plan. And Catherine goes, hey, like, Damon's going to die if we kill Klaus tonight. So Stefan says, yeah, I'll bring Michael to you, but I want my freedom after this. And he's like, once I have the weapon and the thing, you have your freedom, and you are no longer compelled to me to do what I tell you to. So after that, like, you see Catherine talking to him again, like, you do care about Damon, and I did this for you, blah, blah, blah. And it's just weird, because then, so he's able to fight it sometimes, and then he steals Klaus's coffins, and he's going on, like, this rage thing. Like, even Elena says at the Michelson ball, that, like, the only thing you care about is getting Klaus. And he's like, she's like, what? Is it not true? He's like, no, you're right. It's true. And that's, like, really sad. But whatever. So after that, after he's not able to kill Klaus, he does take the coffins that Catherine suggested, and they realize that, like, one of the coffins is locked. That's got to be the key. So, like, the witches are helping hide the coffins, and basically he takes Elena and drives her over Wickery Bridge, and it was Elena's, and, like, threatens to kill her off the bridge if he doesn't get what he wants. And I think it was for Klaus to leave town at that time. And Elena, what? Like, Elena's like, gets out of the car. She's like livid. And he's like, it's your fear that sold it. I had to be convincing. And he's like, what if he didn't? And she's like, you know what this bridge meant to me. Like, you saved me from this bridge. My parents died on this bridge. And I was like crying when she said this. I'm about to cry right now just talking about it. It was very emotional. But right after that, like, Damon says, when did you start drinking the animal blood again? Like, he knows that he's drinking animal blood because he has been around him for a long time and knows his habits on and off the blood. And then even, like, when Stefan is found by Ketsia and his memories get erased, he's kind of hurt about Elena and Damon, like, once he figures that part out. But they tell him, like, you can't feed on people because you might not be able to stop. But he actually does, and he's able to stop. And that's why I think it's more of just, like, who Stefan is. And he'll never be able to drink the human stuff. Season 4, I don't really think he struggles with the human blood type of thing. That's, like, the only season that he doesn't. And then it's either in season 6 or 7. I think it's 7. Yeah, 7. Reina Cruz, when he's, like, the stone, like, the guy who's, like, a serial killer and makes other people kill each other, is in his body. He's feeding on people. And there doesn't seem to be a physical body addiction to it. So I definitely think it's mental or emotional, which is a little bit of both. He's completely unhinged. You see also in season 6, like, Lily Salvatore, she is a Rippah. And then when he shuts off his humanity for Caroline, because Caroline threatens to kills Sarah Salvatore or whatever, Stefan is like going nuts usually. No, I mean, Caroline's going nuts, but she's so biggest, weirdest humanity flipper ever. She's such a control freak. It's so funny. I love to see how that like kind of did that. And she was like, I love their little humanity off thing that they have going on there, but his humanity comes back on so quickly and he doesn't really struggle to get back to the animal blood at all. So they are inconsistent there. And like I said, it could be addiction. I feel like that it can't be that easy. That'd be like somebody who's sober for 60 years off of alcohol, having one drink. You don't think, like, do you think they can just go back? Not that he was sober for that long. So maybe in that situation they could for 60 years. I guess every person's different and every situation's different, but it was just weird because Damon's like, you can take a night off and then we're getting Caroline back. And he's like, I don't need it. Let's go now. And I get his mom is a strong emotional trigger, so that's why I also think he loved his mom and thought she died this whole time. Caroline's like, bye, bitch. And I love that scene where Damon's telling Lily, I'm gonna cry, where Damon's telling Lily like what to say to get Stefan's humanity back on. It's beautiful. Damon's an asshole though to his mom, and I get why. He's hurt. He has abandonment issues. Catherine left him for 150 years and strung him along, let him think that she was stuck in a tomb when she wasn't. But whatever. So like the thing with Ketsia and him having no memories, it's because his pain is what controls him and his guilt. And that's what Emily Bennett says back in the beginning. But then it's interesting because they put Stefan in a human body who was an addict. And I liked that they did that. That was really, I liked the symbolism. It was very cool to see. I think that Damon and Stefan really love each other. And I also like that Damon pretends to be Matt Donovan from Mystic Falls in that episode, when all of the vampire souls go everywhere and he had to jump into a human body. And he actually was like, he's like, funny joke, like, you put me in an addict's body, but he survives. And then you see him go make a deal with the devil to save Caroline's twins. And Catherine says she put the devil onto him, but also this is like not really much to do with his addiction. His addiction does come to play a little bit here, but it's like he doesn't want to be human. I mean, he doesn't want to be good Stefan. He wants to stay Rippah Stefan after he does the deal. I'll never forgive him for killing Enzo. I hate that scene. I forgave him the first time. Mistake. It was a mistake. Enzo was so much deeper of a character to everybody than to like every other character, and not just the fans. I mean, even the fans, obviously. He wasn't in the beginning when Stefan killed him the first time. There's a lot of inconsistencies. And then he can just like straight up take his immunity off and go back and help Lily control her, like give her the talk to control her. Back to Newbie Vampire 101, Rippah edition. So there's no consistency, but like I said, that could be addiction. I don't know. But there's also no consistency with like the magic situations and how he's able to fight compulsion during this time. And obviously, we don't really know a lot about that because we know that Caroline's dad could do that. When we do actually see this with Caroline's dad, it's more like he honed this over years, over decades, and he also was not fighting addiction at the same time. So it doesn't really seem plausible that Stefan can do this too. But like with the devil thing, it was that one of the sirens, I forget her name right now, not Sybil, that one of the sirens like found him back in Monterey and didn't see evil, just saw goodness. But then now Catherine also went to the devil to go to Stefan and Damon. Like, why do you think the devil wanted you? But it was that was confusing too, because they already said the devil wanted him for a different reason. I love Stefan with a full-on beard in the Monterey scenes when he's, that's like one of his sexiest looks for me. That's actually when I'm more like, ooh, Stepapi, because he definitely looks like a Stepapi in that scene. There's just a lot of back and forth with Stefan's addiction. And I wish that like they were a little more consistent with at least like the magical aspects of it. But I do think it's like an emotional addiction, which I mean, people can be addicted to emotion, to lovers, to anything really. But it's weird. But that was my spiel on Stefan's blood addiction. Thanks for watching this episode. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast, and I hope you have a fantastic day or night. Bye.